I welcome you all to our English session of today. Good morning, students. Hope you are doing fine, preparing your lessons with dedication and preparing yourself for the next test. Right. Stay at home and concentrate on your studies. We thought that at least by October we can be back to our school, but the government is not ready to open the schools, so we do not know what is going to happen. Anyway, face out, just get ready with ourselves to face even the worst situation. Right, students? Right. Now, let me come back to our, let us come back to our class. Yesterday, I have given you a homework. Hope you have done it. I don't know whether you have done it or not, but I have to finish it. So, I'm just, as I said, we can take that cattle to the water, but we cannot make it drink. So, this I have been telling you again and again. And if I ask you to do it, if you do it, it is well and good. But if you don't do it, I have to proceed with my. Now listen. Page number 106. Rearrange the following sentences in a meaningful sequence and write the summary of the play. The sentences I am reading, I hope you might have done it anyway. Baldwin, who returned home after meeting Gresham, informed his family that Gresham had offered 100,000 if he could utter the words, "I don't remember," in court during the trial. The family members tried to justify Gresham's act and entice Baldwin into accepting the money. Thus, the hour of truth had dawned, relieving Baldwin of the heavy burden and guilt. Baldwin was an honest and upright man working under John Gresham in a bank. To save Baldwin, Mr. Marshall, president of the Third National, visited him and informed him that Gresham had confessed his crime in order to free him from betraying his trusted friend and testifying painfully against him. Gresham and Baldwin had been thick friends for over 30 years, and Baldwin had even named his son after Gresham. Baldwin felt disgusted with himself and the attitude of his family members. Gresham had been arrested for misappropriation of money at the bank, and Baldwin was to testify against him. Mr. Marshall also offered Baldwin a job in the bank to reward him for his honesty and integrity. The family members who were initially against Gresham changed their mind on hearing the huge sum offered by him. Now, the correct sequence, I am reading it. The first sentence, F. Gresham and Baldwin had been thick friends for over 30 years, and Baldwin had even named his son after Gresham. Second sentence, D. Baldwin was an honest and upright man working under John Gresham in a bank. Third sentence, H. Gresham had been arrested for misappropriation of money at the bank, and Baldwin was to testify against him. Fourth one, A. Baldwin, who returned home after meeting Gresham, informed his family that Gresham had offered 100,000 if he would utter the words, "I don't remember," in court during trial. Fifth sentence, B. The family members tried to justify Gresham's act and entice Baldwin into accepting the money. Sixth one, J. The family members who were initially against Gresham changed their mind on hearing the huge sum offered by him. Seventh one, G. Baldwin felt disgusted with himself and the attitude of his family members. Eighth one, E. To save Baldwin, Mr. Marshall, the president of the Third National, visited him and informed him that Gresham had confessed his crime in order to free him from betraying his trusted friend and testifying painfully against him. Ninth sentence, C. Thus, the hour of truth has drawn, relieving Baldwin by the heavy burden and guilt. The last sentence, I. Mr. Marshall also offered Baldwin a job in his bank to reward him for his honesty and integrity. Correct, children? Right. Now, let us, I just made a start yesterday, but I couldn't proceed. And today, I'll just, so 3 units I have completed. And through 3 units, you are also very thorough, I feel, except that maybe the last non-detailed. Other than that, you are thorough with the remaining. Get ready, children. Again and again, I'm telling, it is a waste of, don't waste your time thinking that there will be time at the end. We do not know what will happen. So, prepare yourself for it. Whatever may be the worst situation that we are going to face, be ready. That's all. Right. Now, the summit. So, some people have gone to the, so have you ever gone for trekking, exploring something? Is there any difficulty in doing all those things? Going for a trek, or just like this Edmund Hillary climbing the Mount Everest, a Herculean task it is. Have you ever thought of it? What made them to do it? Why they have done like this? This achievement? As I said, sometimes maybe for fame or glory, or their name, to establish their name. And mainly we can say that it is their interest. Their interest to make further and further adventures in their life. Adventures. Their craze for adventure made them to climb this or find out something new. You have to explore something new. Right. The summit is about, it is written by Edmund Hillary. You know Edmund Hillary is a person from New Zealand who is very much interested in doing adventures. And this Edmund Hillary is from New Zealand, and along with him Tenzing is from Norway. These two people together climbed Mount Everest, the topmost peak in the world, on May 29, 1953 at about 11:30 a.m. And here in this lesson, prose lesson, Edmund Hillary narrates his experience of climbing that Mount Everest. Right? I'll just give you the gist of it, and after that I will just read it for the namesake. Right? For the namesake. Almost covering all the important details, I'll just give you the gist. Right. So while they were starting their journey, 5 people were there. Right? 5 people together, they started the journey. But on the way, before they started to climb up, 3 of his companions just gave up. They left. They felt that it is not possible for them to proceed again. So they dropped. They have just climbed up to 27,900 feet. 27,900 feet. So, up to this distance, these people were there with Edmund Hillary and Tennessee. And after that, they dropped. And now finally, the two people who were left is Edmund Hillary and Tennessee. So they put up a very good tent, very good little tent, and they stayed there at night. Hope you understand. Edmund Hillary and Tennessee put up a tent, a small living place, that ready-made house like, right. They stayed there at night. Next morning, at about 6:30 a.m., they slowly crawled out of the tent. Slowly they came out from the tent. You can just imagine Mount Everest, Himalayan ranges. You might have studied in your social studies of 10th, 8th, 9th, 7th, all these things. It is filled almost all the time with snow, right? So it is a tedious walk to climb the Mount Everest. That too early in the morning, they were slowly coming out from the tent and moved off in the snow. They moved off in the snow. Tenzing kicked steps in a long traverse back towards the ridge, and slowly they reached its crest, where it forms a great snow pump at about 28,000 feet. So slowly they went, but Tenzing took a lead and he was moving forward. From there, the ridge narrowed to a knife edge. After reaching 28,000 feet, they put up the tent at this area, and after reaching 28,000 feet, there is the path becomes a little more narrow. The path became a little narrow because the areas are filled with trees. Now you can imagine going to the mountain, that too in the peak, how much difficulty they have to face. Wild animals will be there. The path, a narrow path, where sometimes they cannot even step properly and climb up. Sometimes one or two small reeds or something will be there. With their support, they have to hold that reeds and they have to move forward. And wild animals danger, no proper food they will get, cooked food. Even if they take some food, it will be sufficient only for 1 or 2 days. After that, they have to prepare their food. And it is a tedious Herculean job only. Yet, their interest towards adventure sometimes makes them to go for and find out something and give something to the world. Right. So, when the path became narrow, it is not easy for them to go as they were going earlier. It is a little difficult. When the path is narrow, there won't be proper steps and they have to, sometimes they will be crawling, right? From here, the ridge narrowed to a knife edge. That width of it is just like a knife's edge. How it will be? Right. The soft snow make the route on top of the ridge both difficult and dangerous, which sometimes held Hillary's weight but often gave way suddenly. When he was slowly moving towards the knife edge, sometimes he survived, but sometimes that edge could not balance his weight, and so again he will be moving back. He will be dropped back to about some feet below. Understood, children? Right. Later, they found 2 oxygen bottles containing several hundred liters of oxygen left on the earlier attempt by Evans and Baudouin. So, as they were moving, they found out, oxygen also they were carrying. They do not know whether the oxygen they have taken is sufficient for them to return till they return. So as they move, when they reach that knife edge area, they could see that two oxygen bottles were with hundreds of 100 liters of oxygen in one place. Maybe how that oxygen cylinders has come there, maybe it is left out by some earlier adventurers who made an attempt to climb that Mount Everest. And here the author says that certainly it is left out by two persons by name Evans and Baudelaire. Already these two persons have made an attempt to climb the Everest. They might have kept two, left out two cylinders there. Hillary felt the fierce determination that nothing could stop them reaching the top. So for going for this adventurous trips, we should not turn back. We must have a firm determination that I must go up. I have to reach the destination. Not only that adventurous, whatever we are doing, we must have a determination. I will do it, whatever may be the consequence. I will do it. That determination, that grit must be there with you. So Hillary has a firm determination. By hook or by crook, I will reach the top. That is my aim, my determined aim. When Hillary and Tenzing reached the top of the summit, their first feeling was of relief. So somehow, how they reached the destination, we will see in the text. And they reached and just breathed out with a relief. Why they were relieved? Because there were no more steps to cut, no more ridges to traverse, and no more humps to tantalize with the hopes of success. So they have reached there. They shook hands with one another, each other, and expressed their joy. Why? Because they have reached safely. At about 11:30 a.m. I told you, at about 11:30 a.m. they reached. The ridge had taken them 2.5 hours, but it seemed like a lifetime. Only 2.5 hours they have trekked through the ridge, that narrow path, but they felt that it is a lifelong time. Right? Lifelong time. So Albert Einstein, you must have heard of him, a famous scientist who contributed a lot to our to the world in the field of science. Once he is asked to explain the theory of relativity, that is his invention, theory of relativity. He explained it as, see, when a man sits near a woman and a young man sits near a young woman, one day will be just like 1 minute. Whereas, if the same person sits near a fireplace for 5 minutes, it is just like 1 year. Hope you understand. That is theory of relativity, he said. Just like that, these people have just traveled only for 2.5 hours in that ridge. But it seems to them like that throughout their lifetime. Like a lifetime it is. See, just imagine that. The peak, Makalu, Kanchenjunga, and the ranges of Nepal could be seen from there, but they did not explore it. They did not made an attempt to explore that places, because that Kanchenjunga they could see from there. And Nepal, Tibet, it is there in between Nepal and Tibet. So they could see all that places, but they have not made further attempt for it. What these two people have done is, Tenzing made a little hole in the snow and placed a bar of chocolate and a packet of biscuit and a handful of lollies to the god of lofty summit. So he has just contributed some offering to the goddesses there. And Hilary also made a hole in the snow and he placed a crucifix beside Tenzing's gifts. By the side of it, he just placed a cross, right? And after that, the most important photograph, Hillary fell to a shot down the north ridge, showing the North Col. And the old route, which had been made famous by the struggles of those great climbers of the 1920s and 1930s. After 15 minutes stay in that Mount Everest, they just moved down off the summit and at last they reached their camp. So this is the gist of it, how they have reached the, in between what all the experiences they have had is just given in detail in the textbook. Just we will read it out, right? Right. Adventures, expeditions, explorations are always exciting, especially when they are real and if it is the first kind of its kind. It is even more thrilling. The only question that comes to one's mind is what makes one to take up such tasks that involve high risk. So they are these adventures, explorations, expeditions. These are all very curious, exciting experience only. But we have a question: why these people undergo unnecessary suffering like this? Going to a mountain alone is a dangerous, risky thing. Wild animals will be there, insects will be, harmful insects will be there. Why they are taking this risk? It is the spirit of formidable adventure and certain qualities which make them achieve such feats. Feet, F-E-E-T, feet, it is a homophone. F-E-E-T, feet, you know what is feet. F-E-A-T, feet is achievement. Achievement. In homophones if they asked. So it is their spirit to achieve something, make them to have their exploration, adventures and expeditions. Right? Tick the qualities that are required to achieve such a great feat: passion, fame, drive, vision, reward, faith, vengeance, underlying spirit, determination, courage, inspiration, inner urge, physical fitness, money, self-satisfaction, perseverance. Right? Tick off the correct ones and we will see it in the next class. This prose unit is a slightly adapted excerpt from The Ascent of Everest by John Hunt. So it is a thing taken by John Hunt from the book The Ascent of Everest, which is written by Edmund Hillary himself. On May 28, there were 6 men at camp, 8 on the South Pole: Edmund Hillary, Tenzing George Low, Alfred Gregory, and the 2 Sherpas, Pemba and Angmia, but Pemba was too ill to climb. The others, heavily laden, climbed that day to the height of 27,900 feet. Here Hillary and Tenzing put up a little tent and watched their 3 companions go down the ridge back towards the South Pole. So they put up a tent there and they were staying there during that night time. Whereas the other people, they just felt that they cannot move further, proceed, so they were returning to their home. As the sun set, Hilary and Tenzing crawled into the tent. Just they moved into the tent to have their stay. Put on all their warm clothings and wrinkled into their sleeping bags. Just imagine they were wrinkling inside the sleeping bag. See, a small tent they might have put to protect them from wild animals or this severe cold. And they were wrinkling themselves, just like a snake wrinkling and inside the sleeping bag. Next morning at 4 a.m. on May 29, they began to get ready for the climb. Early morning, 4:30, 4 o'clock. See how cold it will be, but without bothering about all these things, their firm determination made them to start their journey. We started up our cooker and drank large quantities of lemon juice and sugar and followed with our last tin of sardines on biscuits. They had their breakfast. I dragged our oxygen sets into the tent, cleaned the eyes off them, and then rechecked and tested them. I just took out the oxygen cylinders and wiped off the snow which was just deposited over it and checked it whether it is in working condition. So oxygen cylinders are made ready. I had removed my boots which had become wet the day before and they were now frozen solid. So I just removed the boots that I was wearing the previous day because it was very wet. And it is in a frozen state, filled with ice. So I cooked them over the fierce flame of the primers and managed to soften them up. I just cooked it. I just showed it in the fire and dried it up. Over our down clothing, we donned our windproof, and onto our hands we pulled 3 pairs of gloves, silk, woolen and windproof. We took the needed materials for our trek. At 6:30 a.m., we crawled out of the tent into the snow. So, from 4 o'clock to 6:30, they were getting ready for their trip. Hoisted our 30 lb of oxygen gear on our back, connected up our masks and turned on the valves to bring life-giving oxygen into our lungs. A few good deep breaths and we were ready to go. Still, a little worried about my cold feet, I asked Tenzing to move off. So, we got ready, oxygen cylinders, everything is ready, and then we had a warming up. Because naturally there will be some tension. There will be tension because it is a high place. They are worrying about many things because whether the health will support them, whether the food will be sufficient, whether the oxygen will be sufficient, and all these things, whether they will be disturbed by any other insects or animals or something like that. All this tension will be there. So to get relief of the tension, to get relief from the tension, they just took a deep breath. Right, prana, in that pranayama, yoga pranayama. That is, it says that you have to reduce your tension. Especially you will have tension when you are writing the test paper. As students, now your tension is only about the test studies, right? At that time, early morning, sit in one place comfortably. If possible, you sit on the floor and take 10 deep breaths and let it out so that your tension gets relieved, right? Just like that, here, he also a few good deep breath. He also took a deep breath. What we are doing, very, very shallow breath we are taking. A deep breath you have to take and let it very slowly so that the lungs will expand and that blood circulation will be proper and your tension gets relieved. Still, so even after taking the deep breath, I am a little worried about my cold feet because my boots are not that wet. I cooked a little, I dried it up a little, but the thing is, but it is not dried completely. So I'm just little worried about that boots. Already very cold. Even this boot is wet means maybe some health issues may occur. So he has some worry about it. So he told Tenzing, you just move first. I'll just follow you. You just start your journey. Tenzing kick steps in a long traverse back towards the ridge, and we reached its crest, where it forms a great snow pump at about 28,000 feet. From here, the ridge narrowed to a knife edge, and as my feet were now warm, I took over the lead. So, very slowly, he kicked the steps and started his journey, and he traversed it is traveling through the crossing the mountain slope and horizontally or diagonally. That is, we call it as traversing back towards the ridge, and where they could see that narrow knife edge path. The path is not broad as they were starting. At the initial stage, they have a small wide width, wide path, but as they go after 28,000 feet, there is knife edge path. As my feet were now warm, I took the lead. Now I have no problem with my chappals, my boots. Now I have confidence, self-confidence, and I proceeded further. And I overtook him. You can see that picture. You cannot just imagine reaching this place even by seeing this picture. But when they go, you can just imagine how much difficulty, courage, determination, grit they have to reach that. The soft snow made a route on top of the ridge both difficult and dangerous. So again only the dangerous area comes. So walking on a knife edge path, which sometimes held my weight but often gave way suddenly. Sometimes that knife edge path bears the weight of this author, Edmund Hillary, but very often when he takes one step, he will be pushed back after several hundred feet. So he will be reaching 100 feet. Again, slowly he will come, and in one place, again, that area, that knife edge place, loses its balance, and again he will be thrown back to 200 feet maybe. So slowly, see the patience they had to go for this adventure. We have to appreciate their patience, but often gave way suddenly. After several hundred feet, we came to a tiny hollow and found there the two oxygen bottles left on the earlier attempt by Evans and Baudelaire. So after reaching several hundred feet, they found out two oxygen cylinders. So from that they could understand that already they know that it is already a trial is being made by some people and they could not achieve, they could not succeed in it. And they are very sure that it is the oxygen bottles left out by these two people. I scraped the ice off the gourd and was relieved to find that they still contained several hundred liters of oxygen. In a way, he is very much relieved. In a way, he had one tension that whether the oxygen that they have brought is sufficient for them. If there is no oxygen all of a sudden in the middle, what will happen? Just imagine. Without air, they may not be able to survive. So now they got relieved because these two oxygen bottles are filled with oxygen. enough to get us down to the South Pole if used sparingly. Even if we use it lavishly, that oxygen is sufficient for us to reach our destination. I continued making the trail on up the ridge, leading up for a last 400 feet to the southern summit. The snow on this face was dangerous, but we persisted in our effort to beat the trail up it. We made frequent changes of lead as I was stamping a trail means path. In the deep snow, a section around me gave way and I slipped back through 3 or 4 of my steps. I discussed with Tenzing the advisability of going on, and he, although admitting that he felt unhappy about the snow conditions, and finished with his familiar phrase, just as you wish. We made frequent changes of late as I was stamping a trail path in the deep snow. A section around me all on a sudden gave way, opened, and I slipped back through 3 or 4 feet of my steps. 3 or 4 feet, I just went back. Now, I don't know what to do. So, what Tenzing was thinking is whether to give up and go back to the tent. So, he was discussing with his friend Tenzing whether it is advisable to move further or shall we drop the plan, right? When he was discussing with his friend, as usual, he said, just as you wish. He just left to the will and fancy of his friend, right? He said, as you wish, you can do it. Just read us this much, children. Tomorrow we will meet. Till then, bye.